If you could ever create a character class that best represents you, what would it be? And now I want to actually dive deeper into the discussion for today because I've gone ahead and created a tier system, class types involving archetypes in terms of pathways, and also broken down some of the core mechanics into overall combat mechanics, but then also this particular thing that is going to be called mana fusion in this representation of the story in AveyaZ. So without further ado, my name is Aveya. Welcome aboard all of you travelers here today, and let's dive into the content here. And here we are again today, back into the sheet here. This sheet is also going to join the rest of the sheets that are going to be following through in the descriptions of every next upcoming video coming through. So the first things first I want to discuss here is how many tiers are going to exist in these class types. We're going to be having 5 tiers total, and the first one is going to be the beginner tier, the second one the advanced tier, the third one the elite tier, fourth tier ascended tier, and tier 5 god tier. And within these tiers there's going to be 2 different categories that will shape what type of fighter that you are going to be within this world. The first one being, are you going to be depicted as a melee fighter, or are you going to be depicted as a magic wielder? And what we're going to see is that between these 2 categories, though they're still going to have their differences, parts of them will actually converge together towards the later parts of the tiers. Let's go ahead and dive into the beginner tier discussion here. So this is going to be your entry-level class introduction to your weapon or magic type, again being either the melee fighter or the magic wielder. Magic wielders must choose to either use staffs or tomes. Staves is the correct plural term, I believe, but we're not going too picky here. We're just trying to get you to think more. Staves are more supportive and defensive, meanwhile tomes are going to be more offensive. And for now, let's just go ahead and highlight each of the 5 tiers and what they mean in terms of the progression system, and then we will go into more of the discussion on all of the different archetypes, what physical wielders can be able to utilize in terms of weapons, and also the different aspects of what will be showcased for magic wielders as well. And then the miscellaneous part, which is going to be the unique characters to the story or unique class types overall. So onward to tier 2, the advanced tier. So this is going to be introducing dual weapon or dual magic paths. And this is the really big thing about the story here. Melee fighters are going to be able to choose one magic affinity, and they will be able to imbue their attacks with that said affinity. Magic wielders gain an additional magic type, so now they have 2 different affinities. And I should have stated this earlier, but there's going to be 6 different magic affinities in total. Those 6 magic affinities are going to be thunder, fire, water, wind, light, and dark. And now that magic wielders in tier 2 will be able to have 2 different magical affinities that they can be utilized, they can also wield both staves and tomes independently or dual wield them. The second magic of choice for magic wielders will not be as powerful as their primary class choice. So what you're going to notice here is that there's a lot of choices being made, and the purpose of this is to be able to showcase each and every person and representing their individuality. Yes, you're going to have a class. Yes, you're going to be associated with that class, but then you're going to have permanent characteristics that are attached to these classes. But then you're going to have a lot of the choices that you're going to be able to make that will still defer you from other individuals who follow the same path. It's more realistic. Though the understanding in games nowadays is the fact that once you choose something, you're set in stone into it, but this is still allowing the person to have individual freedom of their choosing to a further extent. When you take that into a comparison of a reality standpoint, people will oftentimes change their pathways, and they will have set new goals in line of what they want to get better and stronger at. This is a good representation of that. Onward to tier 3, the elite tier. This is where you'll be able to unlock mana fusion, weapon or spell fusion, and opposite combat style. For magic wielders, they learn melee style combat and can choose one of any melee weapon. For melee fighters, magic style combat is unlocked and will be based on the magic affinity chosen in their tier 2 selection. Now in the case of being a melee fighter, I've reached the elite tier. I chose to be a wielder of fire affinity in tier 2. In tier 3, I'll now have the ability to be able to utilize weaker glimpses of fire magic. Melee fighters can combine dual wielded weapons together to enhance their effects. Magic wielders can combine a melee weapon with a staff to convert physical damage weapons to magic damage and enhance their effects as mage fighters. For tier 3 magic users, they will choose to specialize in a designated melee type that will infuse with their staffs, becoming a dual weapon type. Magic wielders can also utilize mana fusion to create spell fusion, unlocking capabilities of certain spells after unique prerequisites are met. In the case of melee fighters, they will be able to utilize some of their weapon arts and infuse them by using mana fusion to then empower their effects and even change them. This maintains the current theme of a very magic-oriented world that is going to be altered by the multiple effects of magic usage in ways that are also impacted for both melee fighters and mage fighters. Moving on to tier 4, the Ascended tier. So this is where divine affinity traits now begin. Exemplar passives are for order divinity. Resonant passives are for chaos divinity. If the individual chooses to follow neither of the two, then they are assigned a non-divinity choice known as void. For magic wielders, also when they reach tier 4, they will now be able to add on a third additional choice of their magical affinities. Like it was for the add-on of the second affinity choice, the third affinity choice will not be as powerful as the original primary choice. For all other circumstances to turn to becoming the Ascended tier, all other characteristics of both melee fighters and mage fighters alike are going to have their proficiency of all combat styles increased. Moving on to the final tier is the God tier, and that is tier 5. After passing the Trial of the Gods, which is going to be a key assessment within the lore of the story, this will unlock access to the God tier class and ultimate power. For mage fighters, they will be granted access to 4 magic types total, 1 final additional magic affinity usage, same representation of any other add-on affinity. It will not be as powerful as the original primary class choice. Melee fighters are granted the selection to choose an additional melee weapon and can utilize it at its full potential. A little bit of a counterpart towards the mage fighters. Mage fighters have more accessibility to the number of things they can do, but it's not going to be as powerful as the primary source. Meanwhile, when it comes to the melee fighters, they're going to be having the choice of choosing an entire secondary weapon type to be able to utilize at its full potential, and the skill set of that secondary weapon choice for the melee fighter for this weapon type will be referenced based on the original path class that was chosen. So therefore, even if I started as just a sword fighter and then at the very end I choose to also wield axes as well, then it's not going to be just the exact representation of what it would have been if I chose axes to begin with. It's going to be altered by the effects of the fact that you are a specialized sword wielder. Mana fusion can then be utilized on the new weapon type attained with other previous weapons available based on the class path. It's a good representation of a magical world. The concepts when it comes to being futuristic, fantasy-based world is that the sky's the limit. There is no limit to what can occur here. It's all about the interpretation of what you want to be perceived. And then in the future, if you were to ever put that into a game format, now you have to apply to some sort of balancing to it to be able to make sure that everything is aligned of what the theme should be. Underneath the section where I've had the 5 tiers, there is a written out descriptive format for the entirety of the tiers in a little bit more detail. Given the way that I've done with all the other documents within this channel, I will actually attach these documents into the description of the future videos to be able to use. So then if you ever want to come back to resatiate yourself into the entirety of the lore, because maybe you forgot a certain key topic of what I've talked about in previous times, then the rest of this information will be there for you if you want to read that. And before I go on to the part of discussing the entirety of the archetypes and the names of those each individual tier, I want to go ahead and do a quick discussion on explaining mana fusion. Mana fusion is the enhancement of mana casting either offensively, defensively, or supportively. Mana fusion can be used for non-combat related tasks as well. Mana fusion has to be learned like any other magical incantation spell using mana, except the cost to use mana fusion is an additional cost to cast. Through ancient rituals, here's a little bit of lore behind this, all newborns of Chaos and Order citizens are granted resonance thanks to the help of the realm's ancient structures of almighty power forged by the gods from long ago. Resonance is enhanced mana stores and allows for cost-free usage of mana fusion, though any prerequisite skill or spell must be learned first before they can use it. The same can be traditionally applied to future citizens for the Chaos and Order realms, but there are requirements to becoming a mana resonant. The two realms maintain a balance of power to the other realms, though they are smaller but compensate with their higher than average power and population standards. The most basic sense of mana fusion would be like a godlike being providing their blessing and power onto an individual, making them temporarily stronger. Other use cases of mana fusion would be for melee fighters to imbue their weapons with magic or divine affinities for overall enhancement. Mana fusion can then be used to combine spells or fighter arts together for improved variance. Meanwhile, mana reserves are traditionally utilized to cast magic through chants and other enchantments. Mana fusion is an advanced skill set that can be learned after developing those individual magical arts or fighter arts for those skills. Hopefully that really showcases the entirety of the purpose behind mana fusion and why that makes it such a unique aspect to this world of Velaris that has now been built. And the key takeaway of why implementing mana fusion, it is a slightly different variant of what has existed in previous fantasy-like films, but now it's going to be the separator because it has more detail attached to it. Now let's get on to the final part of this video, and honestly the most exciting part of this, which is to go ahead and showcase to all of you the archetypes, that is the weapon choices that are available, provided by an authoritative class path. It's just a fancy interpretation of the name for the path that in a game scenario the player is chosen. And instead of going through and naming off tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the format of what I'm going to do, I'm just going to call up by Tier 1, name, Tier 2, name, Tier 3, name, and so forth. So first up in the melee classes, we have the sword users, and this is the Path of the Radiant Paragon. Their Tier 1 class type will be the Blade Scourge. For Tier 2, the Ether Brand. Tier 3, the Ether Veil. Tier 4, the Etherin. And Tier 5, the God tier variant, the Radiant Paragon. For sword and axe users, this is one of those dual classes. Hence the reasoning in terms of dual classes, they begin on the new paths starting in the tier 2, the advanced tier, when this is an applicable choice based off of where you originally started. A good interpretation from before is the fact that if I chose to be a sword wielder, then in tier 2, instead of going to the Ether brand, I could choose to become the Twin Fang in the Path of the Blood Reaver. Same vice versa if I chose to be the Path of the Butcher of the Worlds, that is an axe fighter, starting as a cleaver, and instead of going to the Gore Axe in the tier 2, I could go to the Twin Fang, also attached to the tier 2 segment. So onward of the sword and axe users, that is the first dual wielding class here for the Path of the True Blood Reaver. Tier 2 is the Twin Fang. Tier 3, the Blade Zerker. Tier 4, the Blood Theron. And tier 5, the True Blood Reaver. For the axe fighters, the Path of the Butcher of the Worlds. The tier 1 is the Cleaver. Tier 2 is the Gore Axe. Tier 3 is the Gore Veil. Tier 4 is the Savage Theron. And tier 5 is the Butcher of Worlds. Axes and Shields, another dual class for the Path of the Draxian. Starting with the tier 2 is the Guardbane. Tier 3, the Titan Veil. Tier 4, the Tytheran. And tier 5, the Draxian. For the Shield Bearers, the Path of the Veilmorn. Tier 1, the Guardian. Tier 2, the Dawn Guard. Tier 3, Fourth Veil. Tier 4, Fourth Theron. And Tier 5, Veilmorn. The next dual class, and that is the Shield and Scythe, the Path of the Vorgath. Starting at Tier 2, the Death Warden. Tier 3, the Doom Veil. Tier 4, the Doom Theron. And Tier 5, the Vorgath. Next weapon of choice is the Scythe Wielders. Path of the Revenant. Tier 1, the Duskborn. Tier 2, the Dreadlord. Tier 3, the Dread Veil. Tier 4, the Dread Theron. And Tier 5, the Revenant. Up next to the Scythe and Lance users. Another dual class. Path of the Soul Carver. Tier 2 is the Morntide. Tier 3, the Shade Veil. Tier 4, the Shade Theron. And Tier 5, the Soul Carver. Non-dual class Lance users, Path of the Varian. Tier 1, the Oath Piercer. Tier 2, the Airbrand. Tier 3, the Oath Veil. Tier 4, the Oath Theron. Tier 5, the Varian. That wraps up the starting point of what I've created so far for the melee classes, and now we're going to get into the other classes. And these are classes that are going to be miscellaneous in terms of how they're going to be represented. First weapon type are bows, and there's going to be the Path of the Celestialis. The Tier 1, Archer. Tier 2, Horizon Bound. Tier 3, Risen Veil. Tier 4, Risen Theron. And Tier 5, the Celestialis. To the Gauntlet users, the Path of the Godbreaker. Tier 1, the Striker. Tier 2, the Titan Hand. Tier 3, Oblivion Hand. Tier 4, Ether Crusher. And Tier 5, the Godbreaker. That is such a cool name. I loved every single one of those, to be honest. Up next, the Knives users. This is going to be more of your assassin type. So this is going to be the Path of the Umbra Deorum. For Tier 1, you have the Thief. The Tier 2 is the Shadow Walker. Tier 3 is the Void Scourge. Tier 4, the Phantom Imperator. And Tier 5, the Umbra Deorum. Up next, the Maul or Warhammer users. This is going to be more of your brutal frontline characteristic individual. This is going to be the path of the deity of impact. Tier 1, the Crusher. Tier 2, the Skull Splitter. Tier 3, the Siege Breaker. Tier 4, the World Breaker. And Tier 5, the Deity of Impact. And the only dual class that exists in this other class section is going to be the Maul and Warhammers with the shields. This is the path of the Invictus. Starting at Tier 2, you have the Stalwart Smasher. Tier 3, Dominion Hammer. Tier 4, Titanfall Warden. And Tier 5, the Terra Invictus. So what do you think about these so far? Because I absolutely love the names of these classes, and there's still more to come. So now we're on to the mage classes. And the total distinction between these is just going to be each of the designated 6 affinities. So starting with the first one, the Fire Tomes and Staves. This is the path of the Ignis Sovereign. For Tier 1, we have the Emberkin. Tier 2, the Infera or the Infera. I haven't decided which way to interpret it. I'll leave that to the viewer's interpretation. Tier 3, the Flomvale. Tier 4, the Pyrotheron. And Tier 5, the Ignis Sovereign. Up next is the Water Tomes and Stave users. Path of the Nimbrave Sovereign. Tier 1, the Tidecaller. Tier 2, the Aquasworn. Tier 3, the Aquavale. Tier 4, the Abyss Theron, and Tier 5, the Nimbrave Sovereign. To the Thunder Tome and Staff users, Path of the Rivaled Sovereign. Tier 1, the Voltborn. Tier 2, the Storm Chant. Tier 3, the Stormvale. Tier 4, the Rex Theron. And Tier 5, the Rivaled Sovereign. To the Wind Tome and Staff users, Path of the Tempestral Sovereign. Tier 1, the Gustborn. Tier 2, the Stratora. Tier 3, the Arrowvale. Tier 4, the Aerotheron, and Tier 5, the Tempestral Sovereign. Up next, to the Light Tome and Staff users, you are the path of the Soul Invictor. Tier 1, this is the Sun Writ. Tier 2, the Luminarin. Tier 3, the Halo Veil. Tier 4, the Halo Theron. And Tier 5, the Soul Invictor. And the final magic user type here, the Dark Tome and Staff users, you are the path of the Vantamora. Tier 1, the Shadebind. Tier 2, the Umbravox. Tier 3, the Night Veil. Tier 4, the Nox Theron. And Tier 5, the Vantamora. And lastly, we get on to the unique characters to the story. Because of course, when you're going to have classes associated to some of these unique characters, they're generally going to have classes all within themselves because their power or whatever part that they coincide with is going to differ within the world altogether. So up next, unique character number 1. And actually, I should probably take out the weapon type here and I should call this character. That makes way more sense. I had weapon type for things that they're not weapons. They're no longer weapon types. These are designated characters. So up next, character number 1. This is Avant Zendelga and Freya Zagar. They follow the path of Aveya. Now, though, for the majority of the story, they're going to begin in terms of the Bladezerker, and they very quickly transfer into the Ravager class. The only thing I did here was copy the same route from the origination of the Bladezerker, starting from Sword Wielders, the Blade Scourge Tier 1, Tier 2 Twin Fang, that is the previous designation of the Bladezerker. Due to a certain significant part of the story, they become known as the Ravagers. Tier 4, for the protagonist of the story, they become the Bloodchain Regent. And Tier 5, the final tier of the story for them, they become the Aveya Ascendant. The next character of the story is Luna Zavarith. Luna is another character that will have a large impact on the story because she's going to be the character that has the most screen time in terms of the other royal family in the Realm of Chaos. Luna is going to be following the path of the Zelvari. For Tier 1, she starts as a Shadow Whisper. Tier 2, the Echo Harvester. Tier 3, the Void Reaper. Tier 4, the Obliviate Phantom. And Tier 5, the Zelvari. 2 other miscellaneous characters within this unique character category, and that's going to be Azusa Zagar and Adonis Zagar. They are both the path of the Aveya hair. You can tell by the verbiage here, these are effectively going to be the children to Freya and Avant in the very future of the story, but as to the exact implementation, I've not decided how they will come into the story. But one thing is for sure, what I have determined is their final tier class, that would be Tier 5, they will be represented as the Aveya heir. Up next, we have Prince Valen Calva from the capital nation of Athens. Prince Valen will be following the path of the Calva sovereign. In the first instance of seeing Prince Valen, he will be known as the Oathbound Luminary, Tier 3. For Tier 4, the Equinox Heir, and Tier 5, the Calva sovereign. Up next, the significant character of the story, Valtherin Zendelga, and also the King of the Chaos Realm. King Valtherin will follow the path of the Chaos King. He is represented as the starting Tier 4 in the Ascended tier, and he is the Chaos Monarch, ultimately leading to Tier 5, the Oblivion King. Up next is Zarveth Zendelga, the father to King Valtherin. Zarveth is going to be playing as the role of the major antagonist of the story, or one of, and he is going to be following the path of the Corrupted. And the only representation of Zarveth, given that he is the first almighty god within the story of the lore, he will be recognized as the progenitor, or by title, the Oblivion God. So judging by the last name of Zarveth, Zarveth is represented as King Valtherin's father, following the origination of the Curse of the Bloodline. Jumping down here to the final unique class category, and that is the Traveler. Now, one thing to note here about the Traveler, I've created the sense of the Traveler within this story because I wanted there to be a character that provides the reasonings for altering the end of the story. In a traditional sense of playing a game and you're offered an quote-unquote avatar character that you can not only create and customize to be your own, but then you have what was predetermined supposed to be the exact path of that particular person within the story. This is a bit of a reference to the Fire Emblem series as well, where they do this implementation, but then although in the first few instances of where they implemented this part within the story, it had little to no significance, and over time they've created it to where that quote-unquote avatar character or creative character has impact to the story now. And in this case here, this is going to be the most balanced class that is available, and the entirety of this character is represented as the person who is kind of like a mediary, or the unknown traveler that follows around with the protagonist in the story. And the number one designation that separates Path of the Traveler from anything else is that the Traveler is not specialized in either melee combat or magic combat. It is a true testament of a 50-50% split, meaning that there are not going to be any particular advanced characteristics that the person will be able to learn in terms of melee-based combat or magic-based combat. Of course, ultimates will always come into play here, and I think that this class would absolutely need to be presented a choice of having several different ultimates of choosing to be better representative as this general style, but also this will be the greatest showcase of a character that has the power to choose for themselves, to choose the fate that they want to follow. If they want to have more of a 60-40 approach, then they can do that, but ultimately they have the availability. It's just that the availability ceiling is lower than the specialized availability in the other classes. Think of it as jack of all trades but master of none. And all of the other specialized formats will be a focused or specialty within those designated fields, but not a jack of all trades. That makes sense? I think that's a good interpretation. Onward to the Path of Duality for the Traveler. The Traveler tier number 1 is the Wayfarer, tier 2 the Convergent, tier 3 the Arcane Conflux, tier 4 the Duality Regen, and tier 5 the Duality Ascendant. So this is somebody who's not going to be pro chaos or pro order, but rather the complete neutral balanced aspect in terms of it's interpreted by the individual. And that wraps up the rest of this document here. And the one thing I really want to know firsthand is, one, what is your favorite part about all of this? Is it monofusion? Is it the implementation of the tier system, going from tier 1 to 5? Is it the names? Are the names, do you just really resonate with all of the names that I've presented in these class types? Or is this something completely different that I don't even aware of off the top of my head? Well, I want to know. And I think that would be really cool to also see the impact of what this showcase here can not only provide to all of you in terms of world builders and other enthusiasts out there, but also just to be able to determine what type of class would you love to see in your words for yourself, or the character that you would best depict for you. I've talked a lot in this channel about the creation of your reality persona. And a part of this, and the reason why I've created this entirety of the tier system, is because part of that persona that I've created exists within this system. And ultimately, that's why I chose to create the tier system now, after finishing the friend portfolio reveal. So now the choice is yours for the rest of all of you. What do you want to see next? Leave your comments and thumbs up down below. Subscribe for more detail, because there's so much more coming. And by utilizing the characters within the story, my goal is to change the hearts of many, one person at a time. Stay tuned for more. Cue the outro, editor. Oh wait, that's me. Just kidding. Cue the outro.